Maya Chen kept her eyes down as she walked through the corridors of the Galactic Academy. The other cadets towered over her small frame, their alien features casting long shadows in the artificial lighting. At 19, she was the youngest human ever accepted into the prestigious military training program. But nobody seemed impressed by that fact. "Look, it's the little Earth mouse," sneered Zrath, a massive reptilian from the Saurian Empire. His scales gleamed green-black under the lights as he blocked her path. Still wondering why they let such a weak species join the academy, Maya clutched her datapad tighter and tried to step around him, but two more aliens moved to block her way. A crystalline being from the Silicon Confederacy clicked disapprovingly, while a gas-form entity from the Nebula Collective swirled with what she had learned was amusement. "Please, I just need to get to class," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible in the busy hallway. Zrath laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Did you hear that? It speaks so quietly even our translation devices struggle to pick it up." He leaned down, bringing his massive head close to hers. "Maybe you should go back to your little blue planet and leave real warfare to real warriors." The crowd of alien cadets gathered around them, some laughing, others just watching with interest. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. This happened almost every day since she arrived 3 months ago. The other species saw humans as weak, emotional, and completely unsuited for military service. "The human military sent their best," mocked another voice. This came from Vex, a sleek hunter from the Predator worlds. His 6 arms moved with fluid grace as he gestured dismissively. "If this is what Earth considers warrior material, perhaps we should remove them from the Alliance before they get real soldiers killed." Maya's hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to speak louder. "I earned my place here just like everyone else." "Earned?" Zrath's laugh grew louder. "Your species barely discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. We've been conquering star systems since before your planet had written language." The crowd murmured agreement. It was true that humans were the newest members of the Galactic Alliance, accepted only because of their unexpected technological innovations. But most alien species still saw them as primitive newcomers who didn't belong among the established powers. Commander Thexalon approached, his 8 spider-like legs clicking on the metal floor. The arachnid officer was known for his strict discipline and complete lack of patience for cadets who caused trouble. The crowd immediately began to disperse, but Zrath held his ground. "Is there a problem here?" Thexalon's voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in 3 different galactic wars. "No problem, sir," Zrath said with mock innocence. "Just helping our human classmate understand Academy traditions." Thexalon's multiple eyes focused on Maya. "Cadet Chen? You're late for tactical analysis class." "Yes, sir. I was just heading there," Maya replied, grateful for the interruption. "Then move along, all of you." The commander's tone brooked no argument. As Maya hurried away, she heard Zrath call after her. "This isn't over, little mouse. Sooner or later, you'll have to prove you belong here. And when that day comes, everyone will see what humans are really made of." Maya slipped into the tactical analysis classroom, just as Professor Krillax began the lesson. The insectoid instructor's compound eyes briefly noted her arrival, before continuing with a holographic display of famous battles. "Today we examine the Siege of Proxima Station." Krillax clicked in the translated speech pattern. "A textbook example of how superior firepower and advanced shield technology can overcome numerical advantages." Maya took her usual seat in the back corner, where she could observe without being noticed. She opened her datapad and began taking notes, but her mind kept drifting to the encounter in the hallway. Zrath's words echoed in her thoughts. "Everyone will see what humans are really made of." The holographic display showed massive alien warships laying siege to a heavily fortified space station. The attacking force used overwhelming plasma bombardments and gravity weapons that could tear apart entire sections of the station's hull. It was brutal, efficient, and exactly the kind of warfare that most galactic species respected. "The key to victory," Professor Krillax explained, "was the hegemony's willingness to accept massive casualties in exchange for strategic position. They lost 60% of their fleet, but gained control of the entire sector." A cadet from the warrior clans raised a clawed hand. "Professor, what about alternative strategies? Surely there were less costly approaches." "In galactic warfare, there are no alternatives to strength," Krillax replied firmly. "The weak are consumed by the strong. This is the natural order that has governed space combat for millennia. Maya bit her lip, wanting to speak but knowing her words would only invite more mockery. She had studied human military history extensively, and she knew there were always alternatives. Her species had never had the luxury of overwhelming force, so they had developed different approaches. Deception, misdirection, asymmetric tactics, psychological warfare. Humans excelled at finding creative solutions when faced with superior enemies. But here at the Academy, such concepts were dismissed as the desperate tactics of inferior species. Real warriors, according to galactic military doctrine, face their enemies directly with superior technology and overwhelming force. After class, Maya gathered her materials and headed toward the exit, hoping to avoid another confrontation. But Vex was waiting for her outside the classroom, his predator's smile revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Interesting lecture, don't you think?" he said, falling into step beside her. "The professor's right about strength being everything. Your people will learn that lesson eventually." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "War is coming, little human. The hegemony grows stronger every day, and they view your alliance as weak. When the fighting starts, species like yours will be the first to fall." Vex's smile widened. "Perhaps it would be better if you withdrew from the Academy now, before you embarrass yourself further." Maya stopped walking and looked up at the alien predator. For just a moment something flickered in her eyes, a flash of steel that made Vex take an involuntary step backward. But it passed so quickly he convinced himself he had imagined it. "I'm not withdrawing," Maya said quietly, "and neither is humanity." As she walked away, Vex stared after her with newfound interest. There had been something in her voice, something that suggested the timid little Earth girl might have hidden depths. But he dismissed the thought quickly. Humans were weak, everyone knew that. When the real testing began, she would crumble like all the rest of her pathetic species. What none of them knew was that Maya Chen carried secrets that would soon shake the very foundations of their understanding about what it meant to be human. The simulation chamber hummed with energy as Maya stepped inside for her first combat assessment. The Academy's testing facility could recreate any battlefield scenario with perfect holographic detail, complete with environmental hazards and enemy forces that felt completely real until the moment they killed you. Commander Thexelon watched from the observation deck alongside several other instructors. "Begin Scenario 7 Alpha," he ordered through the intercom. "Standard assault protocol." Maya found herself standing on a rocky alien world under a crimson sky. The landscape was barren except for scattered metal structures that provided minimal cover. According to her heads-up display, she needed to advance across 2 kilometers of open ground and capture an enemy stronghold. The defending force consisted of 12 heavily armed opponents with superior weapons and fortified positions. It was a scenario designed to test raw combat effectiveness. Exactly the kind of straightforward battle that galactic military doctrine favored. Most cadets would charge forward with weapons blazing, using their species' natural advantages to overwhelm the defenders through superior firepower or physical prowess. Maya crouched behind the first piece of cover and studied the terrain through her scope. The enemy positions were well chosen, offering overlapping fields of fire that would cut down anyone attempting a direct assault. Her standard-issue plasma rifle would be outranged by the defenders' heavy weapons, and her human physiology gave her no natural advantages in this environment. "Cadet Chen has been motionless for 3 minutes, observed Professor Krillax. "Perhaps she's experiencing system shock, or finally realizing she doesn't belong here," added another instructor. But Commander Thexelon noticed something different. The human cadet wasn't frozen with fear, she was thinking. Her eyes moved constantly, analyzing sightlines and calculating angles. When she finally moved, it wasn't toward the enemy stronghold at all. Maya circled wide to the east, using a series of rocky outcroppings to mask her movement. The simulation's enemy forces were programmed with standard tactical responses, expecting a frontal assault or at most a simple flanking maneuver. They didn't anticipate someone who would spend 20 minutes working their way around to a position that technically wasn't even part of the designated battlefield. "What is she doing?" Professor Krillax clicked in confusion. "The objective is to the west." Maya reached a tall metal communications array that the scenario designers had included as background detail. It wasn't supposed to be part of the tactical situation, just environmental flavor to make the hologram more realistic. But Maya had noticed it immediately and recognized its potential. She pulled out her utility knife and began working on the array's control panel. Within minutes, she had jury-rigged a connection to her communication system and gained access to the entire network. The enemy positions, being part of the simulation, were all connected to the same network for coordination purposes. "Is she trying to communicate with the enemy?" asked another observer. "Does she mean to surrender?" But Maya wasn't sending messages, she was uploading a virus. It was a simple program she had written during her computer science studies on Earth, designed to create false sensor readings and communication delays. Within the simulation's parameters, it worked perfectly. The enemy defenders suddenly found their targeting system showing phantom contacts in dozens of different locations, their communication network filled with contradictory orders and false status reports. Half of them turned their weapons toward imaginary threats while the others tried to re-establish command and control. Maya used the confusion to advance rapidly across the open ground. When the first defender spotted her actual position, she was already within close range of their fortifications. The enemy soldier raised his weapon to fire, but his targeting system showed 3 different locations for the small human. His shot went wide. Maya rolled into the trench system and drew her sidearm. At close range, her smaller size became an advantage as she moved through the narrow passages between fortified positions. The defenders, programmed for long-range combat, were clumsy and confused in the confined space. One by one, she eliminated them with precise shots. Not through superior firepower or alien strength, but through positioning, timing, and exploiting the weaknesses in their tactical response patterns. When the last defender fell, the simulation ended with a soft chime. "Time, 47 minutes, 32 seconds, announced the computer. "Mission objective achieved with 0 casualties to attacking force." The observation deck fell silent. Several instructors stared at their displays, convinced there had been some kind of error in the simulation. The fastest time previously recorded for Scenario 7 Alpha was over 2 hours, and that had been achieved by a Saurian cadet who simply absorbed massive amounts of enemy fire while advancing directly toward the objective. "Run a diagnostic on the simulation," ordered Commander Thexelon. "Check for system malfunctions." But Maya was already walking toward the exit chamber, ejecting the spent energy cell from her sidearm with practiced efficiency. She had expected this reaction. Throughout human history, when conventional forces encountered unexpected tactics, their first assumption was always that something had gone wrong. The diagnostic came back clean. The simulation had functioned perfectly, recording every detail of an unprecedented tactical performance. Maya had achieved total victory not through strength or advanced technology, but through creative thinking and adaptability. "How?" Professor Krillax finally managed to ask. "The scenario was designed to test assault capabilities. She didn't assault anything. She identified a vulnerability in the enemy's systems and exploited it," replied Dr. Helix, the Academy's tactical theory instructor. The ancient synthetic being had observed thousands of combat simulations over the centuries. "It's not a tactic any of our databases contain records of." Word of Maya's performance spread quickly through the Academy. By the time she reached the cafeteria for dinner, clusters of alien cadets were huddled in intense conversations, occasionally glancing in her direction with expressions ranging from confusion to suspicion. Zracht intercepted her before she could reach an empty table. "What kind of trick did you use in there?" he demanded, his voice carrying across the entire dining hall. Maya looked up at the massive reptilian, her expression calm and steady. "No trick, just tactics." "Impossible," snarled Vex, joining the confrontation. "Humans don't possess advanced combat programming. Your species lacks the necessary neural complexity for sophisticated warfare." "Maybe that's our advantage," Maya replied quietly. "We think differently because we have to." The comment drew laughter from several alien cadets, but it wasn't the mocking laughter Maya had grown accustomed to. There was an edge of uncertainty in it, as if they weren't quite sure what to make of her anymore. Commander Thexelon appeared at Maya's shoulder. "Cadet Chen, report to Briefing Room 7 in 1 hour. The Academy Council wishes to discuss your performance." As the commander walked away, Zracht leaned closer to Maya. "This isn't over," he hissed. "One lucky simulation doesn't prove anything. When real combat comes, we'll see what you're really made of." Maya met his gaze without flinching. Yes, she said simply. You will. The alien cadets dispersed slowly, leaving Maya alone with her meal and her thoughts. She had known this moment would come eventually, the moment when she would have to demonstrate that humans belonged among the galaxy's warrior species. But this was only the beginning. The real tests were still ahead, and she could feel the weight of her entire species' reputation resting on her shoulders. What none of them realized yet was that Maya Chen had been preparing for this her entire life, carrying knowledge and capabilities that went far beyond anything the Galactic Academy had ever encountered. The Academy Council chamber was an imposing circular room with holographic displays, showing star maps and fleet positions throughout Alliance space. Representatives from 12 different species sat in elevated positions around the perimeter, their various forms of alien physiology, creating an intimidating audience for any cadet called before them. Maya stood at attention in the center of the chamber, her small human frame dwarfed by the massive architecture designed to accommodate beings ranging from gas-form entities to crystalline giants. The silence stretched for several minutes as the council members reviewed data from her simulation performance. Admiral Korath, an ancient hegemony defector whose cybernetic implants covered half his scarred face, finally spoke. Cadet Chen, your tactical approach in yesterday's assessment was highly irregular. Explain your methodology. Maya kept her voice steady and clear. I identified system vulnerabilities and exploited them to neutralize the enemy force with minimal risk and maximum efficiency. Sir, by system vulnerabilities you mean cheating, accused Counselor Vexna, a sharp-featured predator whose species prized direct confrontation above all else. You manipulated the simulation parameters instead of engaging in honest combat. With respect, Counselor, I used the resources available within the scenario parameters. The communication array was part of the battlefield environment, and accessing it required technical skills and tactical innovation. Maya paused, then added, in real combat, would you expect the enemy to ignore available advantages? Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The question highlighted a fundamental assumption in galactic military doctrine, that honor and strength were more important than victory through unconventional means. Dr. Synthesis, the synthetic representative, projected a holographic display of Maya's simulation. The cadet's approach demonstrates previously unrecorded tactical patterns. Her species appears to possess cognitive flexibility that allows for rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving under pressure. Creative? Problem-solving, repeated Admiral Korath with what might have been amusement. An interesting way to describe cowardice and trickery. Maya felt a familiar flash of anger but kept her expression neutral. Admiral, if I may ask, what is the primary objective of military action? To defeat the enemy through superior force and tactical superiority. Korath replied immediately. I would respectfully suggest that the primary objective is to achieve strategic goals while preserving friendly forces and resources, Maya countered. If superior force is available, it should be used. If not, alternative methods become necessary. The chamber fell silent again. What Maya was describing challenged thousands of years of established military thinking among the galactic species. They had always relied on technological advancement and natural advantages to dominate their enemies. The concept of intentionally fighting from a position of weakness was almost incomprehensible. Counselor Thexalon leaned forward on his spider-like legs. Your simulation performance raises questions about human combat doctrine. What training did you receive on Earth? Maya hesitated for the first time. This was the question she had been dreading, because the honest answer would reveal far more about human nature than most aliens were prepared to understand. I studied military history extensively, she said carefully. Human conflicts throughout our recorded history, strategies used by smaller forces against larger ones, asymmetric warfare principles, and psychological operations. Psychological operations? Dr. Synthesis inquired with obvious interest. Please elaborate. The study of how to influence enemy decision-making through information manipulation, deception, and exploiting cognitive biases, Maya explained. Humans have always been physically weaker than our major predators, so we developed different survival strategies. Admiral Korath's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. Are you suggesting that deception and manipulation are central to human military doctrine? Maya met his gaze directly. I'm suggesting that humans excel at finding solutions when conventional approaches are impossible. We adapt, improvise, and overcome through whatever means are available. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Several council members exchanged glances, and Maya could practically see them reassessing their assumptions about Earth's newest species. Councillor Vexna stood abruptly. This is exactly why humans should not be admitted to advanced military training. They lack the honor and directness necessary for true warriors. Their approach is fundamentally dishonest. Is it dishonest to use camouflage? Maya asked quietly. To attack at night when visibility is reduced? To coordinate attacks from multiple directions? Every species here uses tactics that provide advantages over their enemies. Those are established military practices, Vexna snapped. What you did was manipulation of systems that weren't intended to be part of the combat scenario. Maya smiled slightly, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she looked completely confident. Counselor, in real warfare, the enemy doesn't limit themselves to intended parameters. They use every available resource, exploit every weakness, and attack from every possible angle. If we train only for fair fights, we prepare our forces for defeat. Dr. Synthesis processed this for several seconds before responding. The cadet raises a valid point. Enemy forces in actual combat will not restrict themselves to tactical approaches we find acceptable or honorable. Furthermore, Maya continued, gaining momentum, the scenario I completed was designed to test assault capabilities against a fortified position, but the mission objective was to capture the stronghold, not to demonstrate any particular tactical approach. I achieved the objective with 0 casualties and minimal resource expenditure. By any measure of military effectiveness, this represents an optimal outcome. Admiral Korath's expression had changed during Maya's explanation. The old warrior was beginning to see something that intrigued him. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what would you do if faced with an enemy force that significantly outnumbered and outgunned you? I would study their capabilities, identify their weaknesses, and find ways to turn their strengths against them, Maya replied without hesitation. I would make them fight on my terms instead of theirs. And if they refuse to engage on your terms? Maya's smile widened slightly. Then I would force them to, through methods they wouldn't expect or understand until it was too late. The chamber erupted in heated discussion among the council members. Some were clearly disturbed by Maya's approach, viewing it as fundamentally dishonest. Others were beginning to recognize the potential value of incorporating human tactical innovations into Alliance military doctrine. Councillor Thexalon raised a clawed hand for silence. The Academy has decided to implement an advanced assessment for Cadet Chen. Yu Zhou will be given command of a mixed-species squad in a complex scenario that cannot be solved through conventional means. Maya felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment she had been preparing for since childhood, the chance to prove that humanity belonged among the galaxy's military powers. The assessment will take place in 3 days, Admiral Korath announced. You will have access to full tactical databases and real-time intelligence. However, you will also face opposition commanded by some of our most experienced strategists. As Maya was dismissed from the chamber, she could hear the council members continuing their heated debate. Some were calling for her immediate expulsion, while others argued that her performance demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking the Alliance needed. Walking back through the Academy corridors, Maya noticed that the other cadets watched her with new expressions. The mockery was gone, replaced by uncertainty and something that might have been respect. Word of her council appearance had spread quickly, and everyone knew that something significant was about to happen. Zrath blocked her path near the dormitory entrance, but his usual aggressive posture was subdued. 3 days, he said simply. 3 days, Maya agreed. Don't embarrass yourself, human. The whole galaxy will be watching. Maya looked up at the massive reptilian and nodded slowly. I'm counting on it. The Academy Council chamber was an imposing circular room, with holographic displays showing star maps and fleet positions throughout Alliance space. Representatives from 12 different species sat in elevated positions around the perimeter, their various forms of alien physiology creating an intimidating audience for any cadet called before them. Maya stood at attention in the center of the chamber, her small human frame dwarfed by the massive architecture designed to accommodate beings ranging from gas-form entities to crystalline giants. The silence stretched for several minutes as the council members reviewed data from her simulation performance. Admiral Korath, an ancient hegemony defector whose cybernetic implants covered half his scarred face, finally spoke. Cadet Chen, your tactical approach in yesterday's assessment was highly irregular. Explain your methodology. Maya kept her voice steady and clear. I identified system vulnerabilities and exploited them to neutralize the enemy force with minimal risk and maximum efficiency. Sir? By system vulnerabilities, you mean cheating, accused Counselor Vexna, a sharp-featured predator whose species prized direct confrontation above all else. You manipulated the simulation parameters instead of engaging in honest combat. With respect, Counselor, I used the resources available within the scenario parameters. The communication array was part of the battlefield environment, and accessing it required technical skills and tactical innovation. Maya paused, then added, in real combat, would you expect the enemy to ignore available advantages? Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The question highlighted a fundamental assumption in galactic military doctrine, that honor and strength were more important than victory through unconventional means. Dr. Synthesis, the synthetic representative, projected a holographic display of Maya's simulation. The cadet's approach demonstrates previously unrecorded tactical patterns. Her species appears to possess cognitive flexibility that allows for rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving under pressure. Creative problem-solving, repeated Admiral Korath with what might have been amusement. An interesting way to describe cowardice and trickery. Maya felt a familiar flash of anger but kept her expression neutral. Admiral, if I may ask, what is the primary objective of military action? To defeat the enemy through superior force and tactical superiority. Korath replied immediately. I would respectfully suggest that the primary objective is to achieve strategic goals while preserving friendly forces and resources, Maya countered. If superior force is available, it should be used. If not, alternative methods become necessary. The chamber fell silent again. What Maya was describing challenged thousands of years of established military thinking among the galactic species. They had always relied on technological advancement and natural advantages to dominate their enemies. The concept of intentionally fighting from a position of weakness was almost incomprehensible. Counselor Thexelon leaned forward on his spider-like legs. Your simulation performance raises questions about human combat doctrine. What training did you receive on Earth? Maya hesitated for the first time. This was the question she had been dreading, because the honest answer would reveal far more about human nature than most aliens were prepared to understand. I studied military history extensively, she said carefully. Human conflicts throughout our recorded history, strategies used by smaller forces against larger ones, asymmetric warfare principles, and psychological operations. Psychological operations? Dr. Synthesis inquired with obvious interest. Please elaborate. The study of how to influence enemy decision-making through information manipulation, deception, and exploiting cognitive biases, Maya explained. Humans have always been physically weaker than our major predators, so we developed different survival strategies. Admiral Korath's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her. Are you suggesting that deception and manipulation are central to human military doctrine? Maya met his gaze directly. I'm suggesting that humans excel at finding solutions when conventional approaches are impossible. We adapt, improvise, and overcome through whatever means are available. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Several council members exchanged glances, and Maya could practically see them reassessing their assumptions about Earth's newest species. Counselor Vexna stood abruptly. This is exactly why humans should not be admitted to advanced military training. They lack the honor and directness necessary for true warriors. Their approach is fundamentally dishonest. Is it dishonest to use camouflage? Maya asked quietly. To attack at night when visibility is reduced? To coordinate attacks from multiple directions? Every species here uses tactics that provide advantages over their enemies. Those are established military practices, Vexna snapped. What you did was manipulation of systems that weren't intended to be part of the combat scenario. Maya smiled slightly, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she looked completely confident. Counselor, in real warfare, the enemy doesn't limit themselves to intended parameters. They use every available resource, exploit every weakness, and attack from every possible angle. If we train only for fair fights, we prepare our forces for defeat. Dr. Synthesis processed this for several seconds before responding. The cadet raises a valid point. Enemy forces in actual combat will not restrict themselves to tactical approaches we find acceptable or honorable. Furthermore, Maya continued, gaining momentum, the scenario I completed was designed to test assault capabilities against a fortified position. But the mission objective was to capture the stronghold, not to demonstrate any particular tactical approach. I achieved the objective with 0 casualties and minimal resource expenditure. By any measure of military effectiveness, this represents an optimal outcome. Admiral Korath's expression had changed during Maya's explanation. The old warrior was beginning to see something that intrigued him. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what would you do if faced with an enemy force that significantly outnumbered and outgunned you? I would study their capabilities, identify their weaknesses, and find ways to turn their strengths against them, Maya replied without hesitation. I would make them fight on my terms instead of theirs. And if they refuse to engage on your terms, Maya's smile widened slightly. Then I would force them to, through methods they wouldn't expect or understand until it was too late. The chamber erupted in heated discussion among the council members. Some were clearly disturbed by Maya's approach, viewing it as fundamentally dishonest. Others were beginning to recognize the potential value of incorporating human tactical innovations into Alliance military doctrine. Counselor Thexalon raised a clawed hand for silence. The Academy has decided to implement an advanced assessment for Cadet Chen. You will be given command of a mixed-species squad in a complex scenario that cannot be solved through conventional means. Maya felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment she had been preparing for since childhood, the chance to prove that humanity belonged among the galaxy's military powers. The assessment will take place in 3 days, Admiral Korath announced. You will have access to full tactical databases and real-time intelligence. However, you will also face opposition commanded by some of our most experienced strategists. As Maya was dismissed from the chamber, she could hear the council members continuing their heated debate. Some were calling for her immediate expulsion. Maya stood in the assembly hall facing her assigned squad for the advanced assessment. The mixed-species team looked back at her with expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. Command had given her 12 beings from 8 different species, each with their own military traditions and natural advantages. Krez, a hulking Ursine warrior whose species valued strength above all else, crossed his massive arms. So the tiny human thinks she can lead us into battle. This should be entertaining. Beside him, Veltar, a sleek feline predator with enhanced reflexes, flicked her tail dismissively. My clan has been perfecting combat techniques for millennia. I will not take orders from something that looks like prey. Maya studied each squad member carefully. Besides Krez and Veltar, she had 2 silicon beings whose crystalline bodies could withstand massive damage, a pair of avian scouts with natural flight capabilities, 3 aquatic specialists adapted for underwater combat, an insectoid heavy weapons expert, and a synthetic tactical coordinator. I understand your concerns, Maya said calmly. Each of you represents species with proud military traditions and natural combat advantages. You're wondering why they assigned a human to command this operation. The question how she lay. Others argued that her performance demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking the Alliance needed. Walking back through the Academy corridors, Maya noticed that the other cadets watched her with new expressions. The mockery was gone, replaced by uncertainty and something that might have been respect. Word of her council appearance had spread quickly, and everyone knew that something significant was about to happen. Zrax blocked her path near the dormitory entrance, but his usual aggressive posture was subdued. 3 days, he said simply. 3 days, Maya agreed. Don't embarrass yourself, human. The whole galaxy will be watching. Maya looked up at the massive reptilian and nodded slowly. I'm counting on it. The mission began at dawn with Maya's squad boarding their modified assault vessel. The ship had been reconfigured to match the sensor signature of a damaged cargo freighter, complete with false hull breaches and malfunctioning drive systems that would explain any anomalous readings. Admiral Korath monitored the assessment from the Academy's command center, surrounded by instructors and senior cadets who had gathered to watch the unprecedented test. Multiple holographic displays showed the tactical situation from every angle: the fortified asteroid base, the 3 enemy fleets maintaining patrol patterns, and Maya's small ship approaching through the debris field. Beginning Phase 1, Maya's voice crackled over the communication system. Her squad had spent hours practicing their cover identities, and now they had to sell the deception that would determine their fate. Maya activated the distress beacon and opened a channel to the asteroid base. Fortress Command, this is cargo freighter Distant Hope requesting emergency assistance. We have suffered multiple system failures and require immediate docking for repairs. The response came quickly from the base commander, a gruff hegemony officer whose species valued military efficiency. Distant Hope, transmit your cargo manifest and crew identification for verification. Transmitting now, Maya replied, sending the false data they had prepared. Be advised that our communication systems are degraded due to power fluctuations. We may experience transmission interruptions. In the command center, Professor Krillax clicked disapprovingly. The deception is too obvious. Any competent scanner operator will detect the weapon signatures hidden in their cargo bays. But Admiral Korath was studying the displays more carefully. Look at their approach vector. They're using the debris field to mask their true sensor profile, timing their transmissions to coincide with natural interference patterns. On the asteroid base, the scanner operators were indeed detecting anomalies, but Maya had anticipated this. The false damage patterns she had created provided explanations for every suspicious reading. When sensors detected dense metal objects in the cargo bay, they registered as damaged shipping containers. When they picked up energy weapon signatures, they appeared to be leaking power cells from destroyed equipment. Distant Hope, you are cleared for emergency docking at Base 7, came the authorization. Medical teams are standing by if needed. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Acknowledged, Fortress Command. Beginning approach to Base 7. As their ship entered the asteroid's docking facilities, Maya's squad prepared for the most critical phase of their mission. They had gained access to the heavily fortified base, but now they needed to locate and extract the intelligence without triggering the sophisticated security systems. Maya divided her team according to plan. Krez and one of the Silicon beings would remain with the ship, maintaining their cover as injured crew members while preparing for rapid departure. The rest would split into 3 groups: technical specialists to access computer systems, scouts to gather intelligence on base layout, and a diversion team to create the necessary distractions. Remember, Maya whispered through their encrypted comm system, we're desperate cargo haulers grateful for rescue. Stay in character until Phase 2 begins. Base security officers met them at the docking bay, their weapons ready but not raised. Maya limped forward, clutching her side as if injured, while Veltar supported her with convincing concern. Thank the stars you responded to our distress call, Maya gasped to the security chief. Our hyperdrive core started cascading failures 12 hours ago. We barely made it here alive. The security chief, a veteran Saurian with multiple battle scars, studied them with professional suspicion. What cargo were you carrying? Agricultural supplies for the frontier colonies, replied Zixtal, consulting a datapad with shaking hands. Seeds, fertilizers, basic farming equipment. Nothing valuable enough to justify the risks we took getting here. Meanwhile, the synthetic coordinator was discreetly scanning the base's internal network architecture, mapping security protocols and data storage systems. Through microscopic sensors hidden in its optical array, it transmitted detailed intelligence back to Maya's neural implant. A tight piece of human biotechnology that none of the alien species had detected. Your ship will need extensive repairs, the security chief concluded, after reviewing their false damage reports. Estimated time for completion is 18 hours. 18 hours? Maya looked appropriately dismayed. Sir, we're already 3 days behind schedule. Our buyers will impose massive penalties if we don't deliver soon. The security chief's expression softened slightly. Even military personnel understood the economic pressures that civilian freighter crews faced. I'm sorry, but your hyperdrive core requires complete recalibration. These repairs cannot be rushed without risking catastrophic failure. As the security team escorted them to temporary quarters, Maya's squad began implementing Phase 2 of their plan. The aquatic specialists used the base's water recycling systems to access maintenance tunnels, while the avian scouts took advantage of their natural climbing abilities to reach ventilation shafts that provided access to restricted areas. But the real brilliance of Maya's plan lay in what happened next. Instead of trying to steal the intelligence they needed, she began planting evidence that would force the base commanders to move it voluntarily. The synthetic coordinator, now connected to the base's network through a maintenance terminal, began introducing subtle anomalies into the security logs. It created false records suggesting that unauthorized access attempts had been made to the intelligence storage facility, with attack vectors that implied insider knowledge of the base's defensive systems. Simultaneously, Veltar used her predator instincts to identify the most paranoid members of the base command staff. Through carefully orchestrated accidents, she ensured these officers would discover the planted evidence at precisely the right moments to maximize their alarm. Within 4 hours, the base's security chief was standing in the command center, reviewing reports that made his blood run cold. "Sir, we have multiple indicators of a security breach," reported the intelligence officer, a nervous insectoid whose species was naturally prone to anxiety. "Someone with detailed knowledge of our systems has been probing our defenses." The security chief examined the data, his scarred face growing more concerned with each revelation. "Time frame for these intrusion attempts?" "Beginning approximately 6 hours ago, sir, right around the time that civilian freighter arrived." In the Academy's command center, Admiral Korath watched the developing situation with growing fascination. "She's not stealing their intelligence. She's manipulating them into moving it themselves." Dr. Synthesis processed the tactical implications. By creating false evidence of a security breach, she forces the defenders to relocate their most sensitive data to what they perceive as a more secure location. Location she has chosen. The asteroid base's commander, a decorated hegemony general with 40 years of combat experience, made the decision that Maya had anticipated. Transfer all classified intelligence to the auxiliary storage facility immediately. Implement Security Protocol Delta 7. Protocol Delta 7 required that all sensitive data be physically moved to a hardened facility deeper within the asteroid, using dedicated transport systems that bypass the main computer network. It was the most secure transfer method available, and exactly what Maya needed. As the intelligence was being relocated, Maya's team struck with perfect coordination. The diversion team created what appeared to be a serious malfunction in the base's primary power grid, drawing security personnel away from critical areas. The scouts provided real-time intelligence on guard movements and system status, and Maya herself, along with the synthetic coordinator, intercepted the intelligence transfer at its most vulnerable point. Phase 3 initiated, Maya whispered into her comm system. "Acquisition complete. Begin extraction procedures." But even as her team prepared to leave, Maya implemented the final element of her plan. Instead of simply stealing the intelligence, she replaced it with modified data that would lead the enemy to believe their security had been compromised by a completely different threat, one that would send them chasing phantoms for months while providing false information to their actual enemies. The escape from the asteroid base went exactly as planned. Maya's team maintained their cover as grateful civilian freighter crew, until the moment their ship cleared the docking bay. Then they transmitted emergency signals indicating they were under attack by unknown hostiles approaching from the outer system. The 3 enemy fleets responded exactly as Maya had predicted, moving to intercept threats that existed only in their sensor displays. As they maneuvered away from their patrol positions, gaps opened in their formation at precisely calculated intervals. Maya's ship slipped through these gaps like a ghost, using the enemy fleet's own movement patterns to mask their escape vector. By the time the defenders realized they had been deceived, the small human-led team was already beyond pursuit range. "Mission accomplished," Maya reported to Academy Command. "Intelligence acquired, enemy capabilities assessed, 0 casualties sustained." The command center erupted in stunned silence. What they had just witnessed challenged every assumption about warfare, leadership, and the capabilities of the galaxy's newest species. Admiral Korath stood slowly, his cybernetic implants gleaming as he processed the implications of what he had seen. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," he announced to the assembled observers, "we have just witnessed the future of galactic warfare. News of Maya's successful mission spread through the Galactic Academy like wildfire. Within hours, representatives from major military commands across Alliance space were requesting detailed briefings on human tactical capabilities. The small, timid girl who had been mocked for months was now the center of intense galactic attention. Maya found herself standing before a packed auditorium filled with senior officers, military strategists, and political leaders from dozens of species. The presentation screen behind her displayed tactical analyses of her mission, breaking down each phase of the operation for an audience struggling to understand how such results had been achieved. The key to success, Maya explained to the assembled crowd, was understanding that our enemy's greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. They relied on overwhelming force and direct confrontation because those tactics had always worked for them. Admiral Korath leaned forward from his position in the front row. Elaborate on this principle, Cadet Chen. How does strength become weakness? Maya activated a holographic display showing the mission timeline. When you're accustomed to winning through superior capabilities, you develop predictable response patterns. The asteroid base's defenders reacted exactly as we expected because they had been trained to respond to conventional threats. General Thaxmore, a massive Ursine commander whose species had conquered 12 star systems through brute force, growled his skepticism. You achieved success through deception and manipulation. How does this translate to large-scale military operations? The same principles apply regardless of scale, Maya replied confidently. Every military force has assumptions about how warfare should be conducted. If you can identify those assumptions and exploit them, you can achieve victory against numerically and technologically superior enemies. Dr. Synthesis processed this information with obvious interest. You suggest that psychological warfare is more effective than traditional military approaches? I suggest that psychological warfare should be integrated with traditional approaches, Maya corrected. Physical capabilities matter, but how those capabilities are employed depends on the mental framework of the commanders making decisions. The auditorium buzzed with discussion as alien military leaders considered the implications of Maya's words. For centuries, galactic warfare had been dominated by technological advancement and raw power. The concept of defeating enemies through superior understanding of their psychology was revolutionary. Commander Velnas, a sleek predator whose clan had never lost a military engagement, stood to address Maya directly. Your tactics require extensive preparation and detailed intelligence about enemy capabilities. What happens when facing unknown opponents or rapidly changing battlefield conditions? Maya's smile carried a hint of steel that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. Humans excel at improvisation. When our original plans fail, we adapt and create new ones in real time. We call it thinking on our feet. Demonstrate this adaptability, challenged General Thaxmore. Describe how you would respond to a hypothetical scenario I will create. Maya nodded. I'm ready. The massive Ursine activated a holographic battle display. Your forces are outnumbered 10-1, surrounded on all sides with no possibility of reinforcement or retreat. The enemy possesses superior weapons, stronger defenses, and complete tactical advantage. How do you achieve victory? The auditorium fell silent. It was the classic impossible scenario, designed to highlight the limitations of Maya's unconventional approach. Every military academy in the galaxy used similar problems to teach cadets about acceptable losses and strategic withdrawal. Maya studied the display for several minutes, her expression thoughtful but not concerned. When she finally spoke, her voice carried quiet confidence that commanded attention. First, I would determine why the enemy has chosen to surround rather than destroy my forces. This tactical decision suggests they need something from us. Prisoners for intelligence, hostages for negotiation, or they're trying to prevent us from accomplishing a specific objective. She manipulated the holographic controls, highlighting different aspects of the battlefield. Second, I would identify their command structure and communication systems. Superior numbers require coordinated control, which creates vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Go on, urged Admiral Korath, clearly fascinated by Maya's analysis. Third, I would use their numerical advantage against them. Large forces create logistical challenges, communication delays, and coordination problems. If I can disrupt their command and control at critical moments, their superior numbers become a liability rather than an asset. Maya expanded the display to show supply lines and communication networks. I would launch simultaneous attacks on their command posts, supply depots, and communication hubs. Not to destroy them, but to create confusion and false information that would turn different enemy units against each other. You mean to say you would make them fight themselves? Asked General Thaxmore with obvious disbelief. Exactly. In the chaos of battle, with disrupted communications and conflicting orders, friendly fire becomes inevitable. The larger the force, the more damage they can inflict on themselves if properly motivated. Dr. Synthesis ran rapid calculations. The psychological manipulation required for such an approach would demand precise timing and detailed understanding of enemy command protocols. True, Maya agreed. But it's achievable if you understand how different species think and react under pressure. Each race has predictable behavioral patterns when faced with unexpected situations. She turned to address the entire auditorium. Humans have been studying alien psychology since first contact. We've had to, because we couldn't compete on physical capabilities alone. Now that knowledge becomes our strategic advantage. The implications of her words sent ripples of concern through the assembled audience. Maya was describing capabilities that went far beyond simple tactical innovation. She was outlining a fundamental shift in how warfare could be conducted. Admiral Korath stood slowly. Cadet Chen, are you suggesting that humans have been systematically analyzing the psychological vulnerabilities of every species in the Alliance? Maya met his gaze without flinching. I'm suggesting that understanding our allies and enemies is essential for effective military cooperation. Knowledge isn't aggression, Admiral. It's preparation. Preparation for what? Demanded Commander Velnas. For the first time during her presentation, Maya's expression grew completely serious. For the war that's coming. The hegemony grows stronger every day, and they view the Alliance as weak and divided. When they finally attack, conventional tactics won't be enough to stop them. The auditorium erupted in heated discussion. Maya's assessment aligned with intelligence reports that many of the senior officers had seen, but hoped were exaggerated. The hegemony's military buildup was accelerating, and their recent diplomatic communications had become increasingly hostile. What makes you believe human tactics can succeed where traditional approaches might fail? Asked Dr. Synthesis. Maya activated a final display showing comparative force projections. Because the hegemony expects to win through overwhelming superiority, just like every major galactic power throughout history. They're preparing for the kind of war they understand. Massive fleets, direct confrontation, technological advantage deciding the outcome. She paused, ensuring she had everyone's attention. But humans have never had the luxury of fighting that kind of war. We've always been outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched. So we learned to win anyway through methods our enemies couldn't predict or counter. And if you're wrong, challenged General Thaxmore. If these unconventional tactics fail against a truly superior force? Maya's smile returned, carrying the same quiet confidence that had unsettled alien cadets for months. Then we adapt and try something else. That's what humans do, General. We survive. As the briefing concluded and the audience dispersed, Maya could see the wheels turning in dozens of alien minds. Some were intrigued by the possibilities she had outlined. Others were disturbed by the implications of humanity's hidden capabilities. But all of them now understood that the small, timid girl from Earth represented something far more significant than anyone had initially realized. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when the survival of entire civilizations hung in the balance. 6 months later, Maya stood on the bridge of the Alliance battleship Determination as emergency klaxons wailed throughout the fleet. The hegemony had finally launched their long-anticipated assault, catching Alliance forces scattered across 3 star systems. Superior enemy fleets were systematically destroying military installations, while civilian populations fled in panic. Admiral, we're receiving surrender demands from Hegemony Command, reported the communications officer, his crystalline voice ringing with barely controlled fear. They're offering terms for Alliance capitulation. Admiral Korath, now serving as overall fleet commander, studied the tactical displays with grim determination. The enemy forces outnumbered them 4-1, possessed superior technology, and had achieved complete strategic surprise. By every conventional measure, the Alliance should indeed consider surrender. Captain Chen, Admiral Korath said. Turning to Maya, who now wore the uniform of an Alliance tactical officer with rapid promotion insignia. Assessment? Maya examined the holographic battlefield display, noting enemy fleet positions, attack vectors, and coordination patterns. The hegemony was conducting exactly the kind of methodical, overwhelming assault that galactic military doctrine considered optimal. It was also precisely what she had been preparing to counter for the past 6 months. They're fighting the war they wanted to fight, Maya observed calmly. Direct confrontation, superior numbers, technological advantage. Every commander in their fleet is following established protocols for rapid conquest. Commander Thexlon, now serving as Maya's tactical coordinator, clicked his agreement. Which means their responses will be predictable within known parameters. Exactly. Maya activated the communication system that connected her to specially trained human operators throughout the Alliance fleet. Initiate Operation Chaos Theory. All units begin Phase 1. What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed in military conflict. Instead of massing for conventional battle, Alliance ships scattered in seemingly random directions, transmitting contradictory signals and creating false sensor readings that suggested panic and disorganization. The hegemony commanders, confident in their superiority, pursued what appeared to be fleeing enemy vessels. But Maya had spent months analyzing hegemony tactical doctrine, identifying their standard pursuit patterns and preferred engagement ranges. Every Alliance ship that appeared to be fleeing was actually leading enemy forces into carefully prepared trap zones. Hegemony Fleet 7 is pursuing our apparent retreat toward the asteroid field, reported Veltar, who now served as Maya's intelligence coordinator. They're maintaining standard formation and approach vectors. Maya smiled grimly. Perfect. Activate the surprises we left for them. The asteroid field erupted with explosions as hidden mining charges, originally placed for industrial purposes, created a deadly maze of debris and energy discharges. The pursuing hegemony ships found themselves trapped in a kill zone where their superior firepower became useless and their larger vessels couldn't maneuver effectively. But the real brilliance of Maya's strategy became apparent as the battle continued. Using the communication disruption techniques she had perfected at the Academy, human operators began flooding hegemony networks with false information and contradictory orders. Admiral, reported the synthetic coordinator, we're detecting increased communication traffic between enemy commanders. They appear to be arguing about conflicting tactical priorities. Maya had studied hegemony psychology extensively, learning that their military culture valued individual initiative and competitive achievement among commanders. By creating situations where different enemy units received contradictory intelligence about Alliance positions and intentions, she was encouraging hegemony commanders to pursue conflicting objectives. Phase 2, Maya announced. Begin the misdirection cascade. Alliance ships that had appeared to be destroyed suddenly reactivated, revealing that their apparent destruction had been elaborate holographic deceptions. Enemy forces that had moved to exploit perceived weaknesses found themselves facing concentrated firepower from directions they thought were secure. The psychological impact on hegemony forces was immediate and devastating. Commanders who had been confident in their overwhelming advantage suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. This is impossible. Transmitted one hegemony fleet commander on an open channel. Our intelligence indicated the Alliance possessed minimal tactical capabilities. Maya intercepted the transmission and responded directly, her voice carrying across enemy communication networks. Your intelligence was accurate. We do possess minimal tactical capabilities compared to your forces. That's why we're not fighting you with our capabilities. Explain your meaning, demanded the enemy commander. We're fighting you with your own capabilities, Maya replied calmly. Every move you make, every decision you reach, every tactical response you implement, we predicted them all and prepared accordingly. As if to emphasize her point, the hegemony fleet that had been attempting to flank Alliance positions suddenly found itself under attack from its own support vessels. Maya's communications specialist had successfully convinced different enemy units that they were engaging Alliance ships using stolen hegemony identifications. Cease fire! Cease fire! Screamed multiple hegemony commanders as their forces began engaging each other in the confusion. But Maya wasn't finished. The final phase of her strategy involved turning the hegemony's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. Their fleet commanders, trained to act decisively and aggressively, began making increasingly desperate attempts to regain control of the tactical situation. They're concentrating their remaining forces for a massive assault on our command ship, observed Admiral Korath. Standard hegemony doctrine for eliminating enemy leadership. Maya nodded approvingly. Which puts all their remaining assets in one location, within range of the trap we've been building since the battle began. She activated the final element of Operation Chaos Theory. Alliance ships that had been quietly maneuvering throughout the engagement suddenly revealed their true positions, forming a three-dimensional enclosure around the massed hegemony forces. But instead of opening fire immediately, Maya transmitted one final message. Hegemony commanders, this is Captain Maya Chen of the Alliance fleet. You are surrounded and outmaneuvered. I'm offering you the same terms you offered us 15 minutes ago, unconditional surrender. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a full minute as hegemony commanders processed the reality of their situation. Their overwhelming numerical and technological advantage had been systematically neutralized by an enemy they had dismissed as insignificant. How? Came the eventual response from the enemy fleet commander. Your forces were scattered, disorganized, inferior in every measurable category. Maya's response echoed across both fleets, her words carrying the quiet confidence that had once made alien cadets uncomfortable in academy hallways. You made the same mistake everyone makes when they first encounter humans. You assume that because we're physically weaker, we must be inferior in every way. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. But humans have survived and thrived not despite our weaknesses, but because of them. We learned to win through intelligence, adaptability, and understanding our enemies better than they understand themselves. This changes everything, Admiral Korath murmured, studying the tactical displays that showed complete Alliance victory achieved with minimal casualties. Maya nodded, but her expression remained serious. This is just the beginning. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to find ways to win when winning should be impossible. As the hegemony forces began powering down their weapons in surrender, Maya thought back to her first days at the Galactic Academy. The alien cadets who had mocked her as weak and timid now served under her command, having learned that strength took many forms. The timid girl from Earth had shown the galaxy what she was made of. And in doing so, she had revealed what humanity itself was capable of when pushed to its limits. The age of human dominance in galactic warfare had begun, not through superior force but through superior understanding of how to turn any enemy's strength against them. Maya Chen had kept her promise. Everyone had indeed seen what humans were really made of, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.